Welcome, warriors. It's me, Linda B. Thank you all so much for joining me here today. Hello, heartstrings, iron ear June. Hello, hello. Smash that like button, guys. Please smash the like button. All right, so you already know that we've got to deal with some things with Miss Cackling Kamala. She's got a lot going on, Miss Cackling Kamala. She is doing a lot, doing the most out here. And she's got some more information on Kamala's mom, Candace Owens does. She has more information on her mother. And we're going to go over that tonight. And this is crazy stuff, guys. MK Ultra. This is about her mother, Kamala's mother. And I don't know how familiar you guys are with MK Ultra. I'm actually not that familiar with it, but this is sure to be very interesting. I don't want to keep you guys long, but I'm going to say a short prayer. Dear God, in the name of Jesus, we come before you. We pray your peace, your security, and your safety for all of us, your people, and that you get the glory in our lives. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. And don't forget to smash the like button. And whoo, this is crazy, guys. This is very, very crazy. So we're going to go ahead and get into it right now.
Yoichi Clark, it is an honor to have you join the show today. I'm just going to let guests know that you are joining by audio because you are in a very remote area, but welcome to the Candace Show.
Well, thank you very much. Very glad. I'm a rather minor character in this border drama right now, and I'm afraid communications where I am are really, they've been tampered with because of the border situation. It's terrible.
So. Well, you might be a minor character down there, but you're definitely a major character on my podcast right now. We have just been crawling through Kamala's background and her history. I'm sure you're very aware of that. And we did come across your piece, which was quite fascinating for a lot of reasons. You had mentioned a previous marriage that Kamala had. You had mentioned the MK Ultra program. I would like to just start with Kamala's mother and speak about the MK Ultra program because it's actually a program that I have been speaking about at length on the podcast this year that I've been asking Americans and the world to really familiarize themselves with. So can you just let us know how it is that you are familiar with Shyamala Gopalan, Kamala's mother's work, and what it is that you know about her, please?
Well, I was sort of a contemporary of theirs in the Berkeley area. I worked at a news service in San Francisco, Pacific News Service, and so very familiar with the characters there, where she lived, the foreign student population at Berkeley. And I did attend the journalism school, the Graduate School of Journalism at Berkeley. So this is all familiar ground for me. Kamala was a prosecutor later when... she was behind the incarceration of like hundreds and probably thousands of young Black juvenile delinquents. Yeah, there was young kids, but you have to understand the situation. Then the older guys who were running the drug trade for the cartel at the schools, they would forcibly recruit these young guys, and she was just slamming them into prison. They were just horrible, and that's one reason why a lot of Black men refused to vote for her now. She, just that one-sided treatment while she let all the major cartel figures walk or just warned them, get out of here because the cops are trying to arrest you. So she was in the thick of it. She was the girlfriend of Willie Brown, who was a lawyer. He had a law office for the cartel. Later, he became mayor and a state senator. But she was just in the dirty business. And one of my best friends and proteges, Jeff Adachi, died mysteriously.
Yes, let's actually speak about that. So you have a young friend and your protege named Jeff Adachi, and the first time that I had come across his name was in your piece, and I did do a little bit of research, and it is a fact that he did die rather mysteriously, and I think it would be fair to say that he was a contender of Willie Brown's office. Willie Brown was running somebody against him, definitely made enemies, I would say, of the Democrat elite class in San Francisco. So could you just inform my readers a little bit more about Jeff Adachi?
The thing is, he was at Burke Hall as a contemporary of Kamala's. He was a straight A student, and she was, they were going to kick her out because her grades were so bad. and they didn't think she'd make it a law. She's never been a good speaker. And he was appointed to be her tutor and got her through both to get her degree. Later on, she was hired to be public prosecutor. And strangely enough, he was a public defender. And he set up this huge program in which a lot of people really, like a lot of parents in the Western Addition and in the Fillmore, those are the Black districts, were really enthusiastic because he was getting the kids out of prison. These were really hardcore prisons, and getting them into special ed programs, educational programs, work study programs, and straightening them out. And hundreds of kids, and so the community was overjoyed. And then one day he was found dead in his apartment. And they made all kinds of things that, he had this affair with this Russian woman as if she had killed him. But no, she was just a visitor in town. He had gone over to visit and chat with her. And then the autopsy was also, the first one said, he was died of all these drugs. The second autopsy showed him to be clean. So this was just a major, I hate to use the word conspiracy, but that was a conspiracy about his murder, to eliminate the guy who knew too much about Kamala, had opposed her treatment of young people, and they offed him, basically.
Well, you're on the right program to talk about conspiracies. I'll tell you that for free. One of the things that I've noted is that it does seem that part of this, if you want to call it a cabal, call it a mafia, one thing that they understand is to make sure that they control the medical examiner's office. And I don't think that there's any person in the entire world who would doubt that now, especially following COVID, that medical examiner offices are polluted with politics. And yes, if you're listening to this, you should look into the Jeff Adachi story. There's no question. You have a young person who has his entire life ahead of him. He dies rather suspiciously, and then the media starts throwing out all of these theories, which is what they tend to do. They create a bunch of theories so that it confuses the masses, and they look everywhere but where they should be looking. Now, I did not realize that he had helped Kamala in the past. I did not realize that they had a relationship.
You would not have gone into the wall without his, guidance and really attention. And it took a lot of time away from him. He was not a rich person. His father was an automobile mechanic. He worked his way through school. I mean, and as a straight-A student, that's just amazing. Really nice kid. He helped me out a lot with the Southeast Asian refugees following the Vietnam War when they were banned from coming to the U.S. And I was dealing with a flood of them and needed some legal help because we were lobbying Congress. And Jeff just stepped right forward, took care of it, and really great kid. He didn't drink, didn't smoke. He really clean kid. We would go to bars in Japantown. Good singer at karaoke, but he didn't drink a drop. He was just a totally nice kid. All American.
And just what was the year, by the way, in which he passed, or around about?
I think he died in the early 90s. I was by then in Japan. I had been hired after the San Francisco earthquake, major paper in Japan. So I took off, and I didn't hear about his death from my friends, because they were so tied up with it. And it was only much later that I heard that Jeff. I said, "What happened to Jeff?" And he says, "Oh, didn't you hear? He died." And then
what is it?
It was funny, shock to me, and there was nothing I could do it at the beginning, so it took me a long time to catch up with Kamala on this one.
Okay, so what is it about Kamala that Jeff Adachi knew that you believe would have created some conflict for her?
The cartel connection. Yeah. It wasn't mafia. It wasn't conspiracy. It was a cartel. She was an agent of the cartel. And I know other stories, too, about members of that. When San Francisco was very close circles, not a large city.
Right. We heard the same thing from Judge.
I knew everything else, and no one really wanted to talk except me. I worked at the Pacific News Service, and I broke these stories, but even they were scared to take on the cartel.
Very interesting. And, I did recently speak to Judge Joe Brown, and he kind of intimated the same, that she was definitely involved in a lot of dirty politicking, and especially Willie Brown as well. And you mentioned Willie Brown in your piece and his connection, which you allegedly had to the cartel. Could you expand on that, please?
Yeah, well, he was from West Texas. He was there's a lot in California, a lot of immigrants from West Texas. When the cattle industry the ranching industry wasn't doing well, they migrated where he got a law degree, I believe in San Francisco. And his contact with the cartel was very, very early on. They probably helped him get his law degree. I remember one time he knew me. We were going to a public event. It was sort of like a carnival that there was going to be some speeches at. And I was walking toward that with my girlfriend, and then he comes walking right behind me, grabs me by the left arm, and squeezes my arm as hard as he can. But you have to understand, I used to be a steel worker, a welder. I worked all kinds of jobs earlier in my life, so I was tough as nails. And once he felt my muscles flexing, he opened his hand up and just walked past me, fast as hell, sort of in humiliation. That he couldn't intimidate me. That's the kind of guy he was.
Wow, unbelievable! You hear these stories.
He was a very threatening fellow, and he knows me. I talked about the another girlfriend of him is London Breen. She's a mayor of San Francisco, and the first thing she does for homeless people as a welcome wagon is give them a pack of syringes and a bottle of heroin to inject.
Wow,
this is not a joke. This is what they're doing there.
And so working on behalf of the cartel, and we heard from Judge Joe Brown last week also that while she was in power in San Francisco, that she worked to help George Soros essentially commit legal theft by protecting one of his companies. And so we're hearing over and over again that essentially she was given power to make sure that the elites are allowed to continue these various illegal trades that they're participating in. And you seem to confirm that. I do want to...
San Francisco was run by basically the Jewish mafia. Dianne Feinstein, she was born a Catholic and went to Catholic girls' school. But she married a Jewish guy and then just flipped over. And then... and I knew, and the Jews were behind the drug industry there. I remember visiting the Harlem one because a friend told me, "Oh, we got to go over there and visit this guy." And we went there, and sure enough, he was the biggest dope dealer distributor in San Francisco. He ran a garage, the big public garage in the middle of the city, where was a lot of money laundering. He was there right there, shameless about it, counting the cash at his little desk while his wife jumped on me and started rubbing her boobs on my face.
Who was this?
I forget his name. He was the major money launderer for the cartel, and the laundry was this huge public garage that everyone in San Francisco that parked there, because it's right by the city, had to use. It's this like 6-story garage, and then he lived on Goat Hill there in a big mansion. And I was just invited there by a friend, and we were smoking some weed, and he was saying, this is the greatest era in American history because of heroes like what's his name, the head of Microsoft,
Bill Gates.
Bill Gates, he's a giant of American industry, and I said, this guy's out of his mind. He's smoking too much. He's smoking up too much of the product that he's been selling. So.
Well,
he was very core to the whole Jewish lawyers, but more important, the real estate industry, because that's why they had all the young boys arrested. They clear out the Western Addition because they want to put up nice, cute little apartments and cottages for the gays coming in from all over the country, because they figure, because most of them come from rich families, they live like 5 to a house to a building, share quarters. And they're going to die of AIDS, within the next 6 years. So the house will be up for real estate again.
Wow.
It's really cynical. It's like, this is like a Dracula movie. It's something out of this world. And this was America's most liberal city.
All right, guys, the media has dubbed this the abortion election. We have to stand up to this evil. When you join forces with Preborn, the largest pro-life organization in the nation, you are protecting the greatest victims in our...
You guys, this is crazy. What's going on? This is right here. Kamala Harris is Shyamala for real. So crooked, so involved in some horrible things, guys. And I'm trying to follow this man right now because he's going in and out with all these different people. So I'm just trying to hope you guys are having fun listening to this. So we're just going to get back into it in just a moment after she finishes doing this sponsorship right here about Preborn. No, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And this is a person that talks bad about Donald Trump.
And it's like I said, it's stunning because we had Judge Joe Brown on here and he's confirming all of the same things. He was speaking about Martin Luther King's assassination. He was speaking about, how the government had a hand in that. And it is, I think, for a lot of people who over 1 million people, I think 1.5 million people have watched that episode. And they said, I feel like I'm learning American history for the first time, because you learn in your textbooks that everything was just above board and America has just been this great country. And, it's very stunning to hear from people who grew up in these various cities about, mafia related crimes, talking about drugs, talking about the corruption of Kamala Harris and how she was in the weeds on this, and quite terrifying, knowing that she is trying to be elected as the president of the United States. I do want to shift gears and talk about her mother, because I was quite stunned by your assertion that she was involved in the MK Ultra program, and yet that to me seemed to be the only thing that made sense, because she seemed to be sort of infiltrating the civil rights movement. And I'm going, what is this alleged brilliant scientist doing, constantly involving herself in civil rights protests and making friends with these individuals? And because I'm well read on the MK Ultra program, I recognize the connection there. Can you speak about what she did, or what you are alleging she did? Yeah.
Well, the first thing that the first place, you gotta understand the Gopalan clan, they were like clerks, judges, spies for the British when India was a British colony. And Miss Gopalan was born when it was still a British colony. So the rest of the country was up in arms fighting against the British, but they were very, very loyal to the British intelligence service and police service in India. So this is how they all got ahead, by catering to the British. And that enabled Shyamala Gopalan, when she was, after she got her degree in Madras, India, to enter UC Berkeley, which is not the cheapest school in the universe, nor is California a really inexpensive place to go. It's one of the most expensive places. I know. I went to school there. It's very expensive there. She worked at the monkey lab there. She was into it's a real strange combination of psychology and simian studies and zoology. Okay. And she was an expert, training monkeys and all that. And Madras is an area, her hometown, where there's a lot of monkeys running around the Hindu temples and all that. And so she's very familiar and very good with them. And she developed the theory that, and this was a time of Jane Goodall. There's this huge boom of women who work with apes. Okay, there were ape programs set up all across the United States and England and Europe, out of excitement of the Goodall story, news stories. And Goodall were treating apes, the monkey children, as sort of like human children, and getting some very, very good responses of taming them. Mm-hmm. So she was of that school. Now, what happened while she was at UC Berkeley, after she got her degree, she moved out of Berkeley and took her 2 kids and divorced her husband, this guy Harris, Donald Harris, who was, at the time he was in biology, then he went into law, divorced him and moved to San Francisco and did nothing for 2 years. She waited 2 years while her application was in to a hospital in Montreal. So this was the Jewish hospital in Montreal, okay, that she applied to.
Yes, that's where she eventually did work. Yeah, she was eventually employed there.
Process, because they had to check all your background, everything, every little detail about her. And this is because the very famous psychiatrist who really got the MK Ultra program going, Ewan Cameron. He was a Scottish guy, a pedophile, and he was a torturer. He used all sorts of drugs on victims of that program. He passed away, and there was like about 7 to 8 year hiatus where his program was shut down because there was no one in charge, and they had to move the program because Congress. There was a secret, not so secret. There was an investigation in Congress about MK Ultra. So the heat was on, on the Canadians. The UN Cameron's lab was in Montreal. Okay, so he was on the Canadians that fessed up, so they shut that lab down. There's an infamous Allen lab, and then they wanted to set up another center, also connected to the University of McGill University there in Montreal. They had to have that certification. And in the meanwhile, they were trying to find the new director to take over from them, and she finally got the call. They brought her over. They set her up at another one at the Jewish Hospital Annex. And she took charge of the not only a monkey lab, she took charge of the patient care ward. Oh, it was a small patient care ward because that hospital, Jewish Memorial, had a psychiatric clinic also. So she worked as a psychiatrist there in a very small division, which became the Center for the Revived MK Ultra program.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask a question here. So I did not realize that the person who started the program was a psychologist named Cameron. I was under the impression that the person, Ewan Cameron, yeah, I was under the impression that it was Dr. Sidney Gottlieb who...
No.
Okay.
Sidney Gottlieb was a gopher. He was applied. He wasn't into research.
Okay.
He just applied everything Cameron had developed.
Okay.
Use of drugs, hypnotism, light deprivation, all of those nasty techniques to destroy a human willpower.
Wow.
Capture their brain. Gottlieb is a famous one, and everyone thinks MK Ultra was basically American technique. No, it came out of London. It came out of the Tavistock Institute of Sigmund Freud.
Yes.
World War II.
I am just so shocked that you are bringing this up because I got into a lot of trouble with the media for discussing Sigmund Freud at length, and I've been doing it on this podcast. It's super important for people to learn the truth about him, that he was a person who created a method of psychology essentially to gaslight people who were in fact being molested by their own parents, and that's why he was obsessed with children and sex. And it's shocking that we learned that he's a hero in psychology. And it's just very important for people to learn the truth about him because psychology is then, his family is then what bred propaganda. That would be the Bernays family and Edward Bernays. And you are correct. This all fits right into the MK Ultra program, which was designed to see how you could break down someone's will, how you could hypnotize them. We spoke at length on this show about how the Charles Manson murders, that was actually the CIA and everything that the public thinks they know about that. Same areas you're talking about, San Francisco, California. These are federal agents that were obsessed with learning how to hypnotize the public, how to destroy people's will. And a big part of that was molestation. And Sigmund Freud had, in fact, written pieces about how, molesting someone when they are a child, sodomizing, they were interested in exploring how they could create psychopaths. That's also another element of these programs and psychology. And I think it's hard for people to come to terms with how evil that is. And you're now saying that Shyamala got the call and she then took a part in this program of testing patients.
Military intelligence created this.
Wow.
Brainwashing techniques they developed obviously massively during World War II because they tried to use that against the enemy, German allies, and so on, and the German enemy, and also against reluctant allies. They tried to use mind control techniques. But after the war, I think it was in the late 1940s, or 1946, between 1946 and 1948, the British military created the Tavistock Institute, which is on Tavistock Square in London. Sigmund Freud himself flew over from Switzerland to London to cut the opening ribbon. And then he assigned one of his sons to be the director of the place. He was right behind. He was the main psychiatrist in the family.
Yes, I'm familiar with Tavistock. There is also some indication that even the Beatles and music has come out of Tavistock University and how it could transform. Yeah, modifying human behavior.
That their craziest album
Yep.
It's all about mind control.
Right. That's exactly right.
And so then what happened, as the this came under some parliamentary review. There's some complaints, so they decided to move the core of the program to Montreal, former a British colony, close to the United States, for contact. And sort of out of the way, who would ever suspect that this dark devious program is going on in beautiful, wonderful forested Canada, right?
Wow.
And the French part of Canada too. Who would ever suspect that? And they could use the French as guinea pigs, right?
Yeah.
Now, when Shyamala came in, there was concern about the British colonies, and so Shyamala was more adapting this to the colonial subjects, not just the Caucasian people. And so they sent over a British disinfo agent, Hardy L. Baines. He was a character. I've actually been to one of his speech. The case, he was very intelligent, perfect English, but obviously there was something touched about his brain. And then he created the Communist Party Marxist-Leninist, okay, of Canada. Okay, it's the only communist party in Canada, and really evil character. Okay, and the patients that Shyamala was producing for, very convenient, both Indians. He was a Sikh, but very independent of the Sikh movement. He was not part of the Sikh liberation movement. Him and Shyamala were we call conspirators, I guess you call them. She would give him her patients, the young ones, especially they were focusing on younger people. They thought older people were not great subjects for this program. You use young guys who've been out of orphanages, out of prisons, and so on, juvenile detention. He put them with Hardio, and he did this thing called the living statues. Okay. He would. I saw one. I think it was a July 4th weekend. I was off. I had a lot of jobs in New York, but July 4th, I was my rare 4-day holiday. I took off with a bunch of friends and the one Canadian guy who wanted to go home. We drove up there all night, and in the morning, as we approached Montreal, we saw the human statues, on the road. So we slowed down and stopped. Got out. My friends were pretty rowdy and been drinking beer all night. Walked up to these guys. They're guys and women, girls, guys and girls. They were all in these revolutionary poses, posing like Russian revolutionaries, some with their fists up, other holding up a stick like it's a gun and all that. Right on a public road, okay, a major highway. Not a major highway, but a highway. We got out. My friends walk up to them and start to boo, try to get them to flutter, to whisk. They wouldn't move at all. They're full of that. And one guy wanted to poke one in the eye. I said, better not do that, man. If you could be sued if you're, gouge a guy's eye. And then we all got spooked at once. They said, this is really, really, really weird. We got to get out of here as fast as we can. So we jumped back in car and went to Montreal for basically a weekend bash, what turned out to be a total bust. And so I got a glimpse of the Living Statues program. This was later applied to the Vietnam War. Okay, soon thereafter, the CIA recruited. They just put together a group of 200 special combatants to helicopter into the Ho Chi Minh Trail into Cambodia and Laos, because they were it's illegal to fight war then. Each guy as a loner would be dropped off a helicopter. He could run like up to 410, so endlessly. These are really mind control people. They would hide behind a tree trunk like up to 2 or 3 days to await the person the officer they're supposed to shoot, to kill, without going to the toilet, without batting their eyelashes, and in that same frozen pose. And then with some sort of timer they had, I have no idea, the timer would put them awake, warning them that the guy's coming down the road. They take a shot at him, kill him, and then run like hell. Now, out of that program of 200, there were only 12 survivors to 30 dozen, we call them. They got back to the United States. The Army flew them back. They were all at the CIA headquarters together, and CIA said, "We don't know what the hell you're talking about. You know, we don't know who you are. You know, you're lying," and kicked them out. And they became sort of a motorcycle gang in North Dakota and Western Colorado. And I met one of them, you know, so I knew the backstory of this. He was a Canadian Indian.
Wow. This is
there at Shyamala's facility when he was a kid, when he was young, a teenager.
Do you think you know who will win the presidential election or how many seats Democrats or Republicans?
Oh, I was talking about something else right now. You guys, are you guys following all of this? This is some crazy, weird stuff to me. And I'm going to look into a little bit more about the Sigmund Freud. I've always heard about Sigmund Freud, but it seems like in this world that we live in, people who do the most sick and disgusting things, who are propped up as something good when that's not really the truth about who they are. There's deeper, darker, sinister things that are being hidden from us. Just so utterly despicable. And this is who Kamala Harris is on both sides of her family. That is crazy. And she's not doing well, by the way. Not doing well. They've got some early results in from the early voting. She's leading in Pennsylvania, though, but it looks like Donald Trump is leading everywhere else.
What you're saying. First and foremost, the more that I have dug into her genealogy, there are a couple of aspects there that are fitting a little too perfectly with what you're telling me, realizing that her family was involved in the slave trade, that they were involved in Freemasonry, that for whatever reason, she's trying to make everyone believe she's every ethnicity but what she is, which we have been able to determine from Kamala's family, who have been very forthcoming and don't support what she's doing. Some people in her family have told us, look, we're Syrian Jews. I don't know why she's hiding this fact. And then some of her family members who are Jewish in Canada said the exact same thing. Like, we all feel like she's trying to hide the Jewish aspect, which is quite strange. The other thing that alarms me about what you're saying, though, is for Shyamala to engage in this and to engage in what can only be described as program was human torture, to see if you could basically set a human being to set a human being to zero, and fill them with whatever you wanted to do, turn them into robots. And there is an aspect of Kamala that feels as though she herself has been brainwashed. And I vividly recall her relative who I spoke to saying that far from the depictions of her relationship with her mother that she gives to the public today, her mother was militant, is what he said. Her mother was absolutely militant with her children, and she now makes it seem as though she had this flowery childhood. So you have this woman who, for work, is engaging in this psychiatric torture of citizens from around the world. And then you hear from her family member that she was militant with her children. And then I watch Kamala's behavior today, and it seems like she is a blank slate in which she allows every personality to fill. Like, she can be Jamaican yesterday, she can be Hispanic tomorrow, she can act like a black preacher as she's just done. And that terrifies me in a sense. It's almost as though Kamala herself has been brainwashed. What do you think about that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. You got to understand, her mother had to take care of these patients. They're her treasure. That's her ride. That's her income. She was able to buy a house with all that, and a pretty damn good house in Montreal. But her problem is she couldn't take care of her daughters. She's so much with the patients, so she had to regimen them, and she did with the techniques that she knew. They were basically MK Ultra light. Let's say MK Ultra light rather than the whole treatment. Okay.
Yeah.
And that accounts for her weird speech patterns, or her sort of bizarre eye movements and body movements, or jerky stuff. That's just straight like these MK Ultra guys that you will meet. Like that one super soldier I met. He's perfectly normal over beer, and suddenly you go into his crazy jerky fits where it could be dangerous. He could kill you, So that's basically the same as Kamala. Again, she had a lighter version of it. That she not the whole hog. They didn't send her to Syria, to kill a bunch of jihadists or anything. But she has definitely been touched by that. And her sister also. She was another one Maya, she was one of the three main campaign advisors to Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign.
Right.
So they were placed there sort of as controllers. And look at Hillary, what happened to her? You know, from a sort of a goofy person into a robotic person.
Right.
Same thing. The program continued, and her sister was the minder. You know, she had been through the program, and somehow they got Hillary into the program. Scary stuff what they were doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the scary stuff is after that program in Montreal and the congressional investigation in the USA by Congress, the whole thing disappeared off the face of the earth. We didn't get these glimmers after that. You know, we know that big Seattle Anti-World Trade Organization protest by the labor unions. And my ex-wife was a member of the Culinary Workers Union in San Francisco. She was up there. She said, "Oh, a bunch of these crazy guys from Canada wearing masks. There were these small, short guys, and then the big, tall guys came throwing rocks at us. You know, hurling rocks at us like crazy guys." And while the tall guys watched. And I told her back then, "Oh, those are some of the MK Ultra patients. And the tall guys are the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, keeping an eye on them."
That's just unbelievable. And it's funny that you bring up her sister.
In the late 80s. So the program cranked on, but they found, instead of just murdering people, probably this Black Lives Matter thing also. You had all these weird, very weird people coming in and starting a lot of trouble, violence.
Oh, yeah.
Where most of the protesters were they're just laid back hippies, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that was another MK operation too, especially when the rioting was going on. You know, it was 4 days of rioting or something, burned up properties, killed a bunch of people.
Oh, there was no question that was a Fed operation. I mean, when I observed it, it had all of the aspects.
The thing is, you look at Portland, Oregon, and you look at Minneapolis, close to the Canadian border. Okay, close to the Canadian border for these operatives to come down.
Wow, fascinating. Yeah, and it was just amazing. The police just couldn't arrest these people. They just couldn't make it happen. But then January 6th, they're suddenly able to identify every single person who attended. And so you really understood that the government was involved, because when they want to capture people, they certainly do. And when they don't, they certainly don't. And it's interesting you bring up her sister, Maya, because very recently I was able to determine how strange it is that her daughter, which is a young woman named Kamala Harris, has no father. And what I mean by that, and we just keep seeing this happen, is that she had a child allegedly when she was a teenager, and there's no father on the birth certificate, and nobody knows who the father is. And we have been kind of obsessed with, on this podcast, with this recent recognition that it appears as though they're breeding politicians. They all have this very shady background. Everything you're speaking about reminds me of the Emmanuel Macron upbringing and his story and all of the strange aspects. And he's married to a person who lived as a man for 30 years. And the entire state is colluding to gaslight the public on this fact, despite all of the evidence to the contrary. All of the evidence pointing to the fact that Emmanuel Macron is married to a man who at best committed statutory rape against him when he was a teenager. And so we're seeing this program sort of writ large across society, and it's difficult to communicate to people who are still asleep and who still hold this faith that, this process that's happening is above board and democratic, and that we're truly a republic, and not that there is sort of this hand that is maneuvering behind the scenes to elect certain politicians to essentially fulfill their sadistic aims.
You're absolutely right. It's Franken politics is what it is. We've got a bunch of brain dead maniacs taking orders, and you wonder what they did to Joe Biden. He's so dependent on his teleprompter and that whatever the wire they've got inside of him, that they seem to be able to take all sorts of people under. As far as Maya's kid, it's Willie Brown's a pretty tough guy, man. So it could be, Daddy Willie.
Wow.
Willie lives alone in this 20-story apartment in San Francisco. And he likes to pick the fruit. Like I said, he likes to pick the contenders. The next successful black female political hero out of San Francisco, Willie Brown's got to put the tap on her.
Oh, my goodness.
Surprised if it's good old Uncle Willie.
I do want to also ask you, by the way, since we're talking about Kamala and her relationships and this kind of open secret that, I mean, there really is no other way to say it, but she slept her way to her position of power.
Well, you know what Judge Joe Brown said? Judge Joe Brown said she's a hoe. That's what he said. Hold up, wait a minute. She's a hoe.
It was handed power. This was not a meritocracy in San Francisco. This was whether you were in with the mafia or out with the mafia. But you had mentioned in your piece that Kamala was previously married, and that is rather explosive. You said that she was married to a Canadian Brit and that you remember seeing the marriage vividly.
About 10 years ago, I saw the article. I always know that if I see Kamala in the news, I always take note of it. But I was just reading it on on an airplane or something. So I couldn't steal the magazine. And I read, she was married to a Canadian Brit guy, happily married and living in Montreal. And he had some business in Toronto also.
Okay.
Apparently their house was in Montreal. That's all I remember of the thing. It was just something I read and I just had curiosity about. And I'm really regretting I didn't tear the page out and stuff in my shirt. I should have done it. Sometimes I'm just too honest.
So it must have been a very quick marriage, because then she very quickly thereafter married Doug Emhoff.
Yeah, that's what that struck me. And then Emhoff's got daughters, and the wife is still good and friends of Kamala. And like I say, because of the Jewish, he's in so-called in film production, okay, financing film production, but he doesn't have a list of films anywhere, okay? His name's not on any billboard. So the question is that just a cover? Was that, San Francisco again? Was that cover?
Yes. Well, someone did tell me something off record about their relationship.
If, in fact, she was still married, and maybe still married to that Canadian businessman, she's probably a Canadian and a British citizen herself, which would make her ineligible to run for nation's highest office. We don't allow Brits to sit in the Oval Office, basically, not since they burned down the White House.
Well, we also don't allow Kenyans, but that's taken place in the past before.
Oh, yeah, I know what she means by that. We don't allow Kenyans either. Yeah, but somehow that Kenyan made it to 2 terms. You all know what I'm talking about. And, she said that the leader over France is married to allegedly married to a person that was born male. And you know what they say about Michelle. I mean, why are there so many similarities here? What the heck is going on here? This is insane. It sounds very similar. Like she was saying, it is like the same thing over and over and over again. I mean, is it that they can't find people who are actually born in this country to actually run for office and do these things? It's got to be somebody who is not quite eligible, allegedly. Yeah, it's a lot coming out, guys. It's a lot coming out. I'll leave the full link in the description so that you all are able to watch it in its entirety. But we did look at the majority of it, a big chunk of it. That's crazy, right? Whoa, I can't believe the world we live in. I really can't believe it. And they say, and people who are my Facebook friends, they're always like, I've been posting videos on my social media, on my Facebook, people that I grew up with, that I've known, they're Democrats. I don't want to call them Democrats. They vote Democrat. And these are nice people. These are wonderful people, but they vote Democrat and they believe the media. And so they think that Donald Trump is like the worst thing. They keep bringing up, he's got 34 counts. Those of us who know that those are all hoaxes, right? And that the real criminals that really should be in trouble and have lawfare going after them are just sitting pretty somewhere, not facing any of this mess that Donald Trump is facing. He's being treated worse than Al Capone. And this man hasn't done anything. It's just that he does not walk in line with the evil powers that be. When you don't walk in line with the evil powers that be, you get in trouble. They target you. They use the media. They use lawfare. They use all sorts of things and pay people off. And I mean, the whole thing is constructed in such a way to make a person who is actually innocent look guilty. That is what we have. Welcome to the USA, as they say. But all of this is allegedly. I just wanted to share this with you because I think it's very interesting. We've got about a week, just over a week, for this election to take place. It's a week from tomorrow, guys. And I really want you guys to remember to smash the like button. I am on my way to 100K subscribers. Ever since a few months ago, the numbers for me have been dragging a bit. The springtime, it was so fast, like really moving. But it started in May, though. It has started to slow down quite a bit. So I want you guys to really check out my videos that I posted today and really smash like. And thank you all so much for joining me. And you all be blessed. You be blessed. Love God, your families, these United States of America. And as I always say, march on, warriors. Good night, everybody.